Hello all, and welcome to another screencast video for GUI design. And today we're going to take a look at how to actually make this view do something. Instead of just looking pretty and not doing anything and just being able to click some buttons, but it actually doesn't create anything or actually do anything just yet. So we want to take a look at taking this information here and saying, okay, I want to be able to take this full name and this degree awarded, and I'd like to save this data. Okay? So I actually need something to occur. So what we need to look at is actually how to manage what we call events, and then how do we actually deal with these events. We also want to deal with this in the model view controller sense that you read about, which we have a view, which is what we're here looking at now. We have this view. Okay, we have a model, which we haven't created yet, but the model here would be some sort of degree information. That person's got a name, a degree awarded, and so that's a model. And a controller, that's something that interacts between the two, that links the view to the model and back and forth. Okay, so we're going to try to maintain that setup, and then at the end I'll show you some shortcut ways in case you needed to, just in case. So first off, if we're going to look at the model view, we have a view set up. We need a model. We need, the model is, like an object that represents what we're doing, or maybe a set of objects. Could be a list, could be a hash, could be a tree setup. Today all we're going to do is our model is one simple class, I think, that will contain a name and a degree awarded. Okay, and that's all that our model should have. So let's create that model by making another class. So let's go ahead and make a new Java class, and we'll call this degree info. So we need to keep track of the name, so we're going to make a string that is the name and the degree that they get awarded. Okay. So we'll make the constructor for this, so degree info. It needs to take in the name and the degree, and then we need to set that data. So name is going to be equal to a name, and degree is equal to a degree. Okay. This is a model, so we also want accessor methods to get to this information. So we're going to should have a get name method that will allow us to get the name in case later on we need to get this information. So we're going to return that name. We also need to be able to get the degree for this person. So we're going to allow people to get the degree out of this. Okay, so we'll just return degree. And then generally good practice always to have a toString method here. So we're just going to write some simple toString method that all it's going to do is just return both. So name plus, and we'll put the degree on a new line here. I guess that's your choice if you want to do that or not. I'm going to go ahead and put it on a new line. So here we go. We got our degree information. It stores name of the person, stores the degree. So when it constructs, it will store that data, associate it, and keep it. We also have accessor methods to do it, and we have a toString method. So we got a good model. So we now have a view and a model. So now we need a controller. A controller is something that should take data from the view and pass it along to our model. It also would go back and forth. It could actually take data, it could grab data out of the model and put it back into the interface. So let's create a controller. So let's make a new class, and we'll call this our degree controller. Okay. So our degree controller, for this, we want to be able to keep track of a whole bunch of degree information objects. So it's possible someone does this multiple times. So we're going to do an array list of degree infos. I realize I violated a little bit of the way we should be capitalizing these things. So array list of degrees. Okay. We'll import that array list. Okay. We will make a constructor that will initialize this, so degree controller. And so this is just going to say degrees equals a new array list. Okay. And so this should be able to take data, so the view should be able to tell the controller, here's some data, do what you should do with it. Okay, because the view doesn't really know what to do with it, and it's not the goal of the view. So this view really does. If you think about the purpose of this object, it's just to display and take in data. It doesn't know what to do with it. It's not its job to know what to do with it. So this degree controller should know how to do with it. So we'll say public void process, and this will be taken a name and a degree. So this, for now, we could do a lot of things with it. It's our choice now to do with what we want. The controller is the one that takes this data. Okay, I have this data. What should I do with it now? Well, for our purposes of this video, all we're going to do is we're just going to keep storing this data in. We're not going to be doing anything really special with it. We're just going to keep putting it out there. So let's just go ahead and add into degrees. Let's add in a new degree info object that has this name and this degree. And so that's all this does. This is just going to process it by doing this information right here. So the process method of this, but process is not a reserved word. Could be any name. Just the view doesn't know what to do with it. I'm saying, hey, go ahead and process this data I just got. And it's going to do what it should do. Okay. There could be many more methods here. Could be many more things we could do. All right. So now let's take a look at our user interface, which right now has this stuff, and we know we can, if we look at the preview, I can type in Bob Jones, and I can, he's getting EDD, and I get saved, and so the action that performs. So we want to have something occur when I do one of these options. Mainly, what we want to have is if someone clicks a save, that's a trigger for us to know, the view to know, okay, we need to pass this data along to the controller, and the controller should then deal with it however it should deal with it. Okay. So what we need to do is we need to create a listener that listens for this. Every time you click this button, there's an event that's firing. So buttons and drop-down boxes and even text boxes when you hit enter, they actually do trigger an event to be created. Now, if nothing happens with the event just gets fired, there's nobody listening for it, and so nothing occurs. It just does nothing. So even though I'm in the preview right now, if I was actually running the program, all these events get fired and nobody's listening, so it's like goes through a for loop, checks for the listeners, does nothing. Okay, because there's no one listening for it. So there's a couple ways to deal with this, and the simplest way to deal with this is right-click on the thing you actually want to have a listener. There is an events option, okay? And there's the action performed event. So we're going to set an action performed event. Okay? So you can see it already adds in a ton of code for us. Sorry, not a ton, just a little bit. Okay, and it says saved action performed. Okay, generally it's the idea of that's the kind of general methodology for when we name these things. They're it's a save button. It's the action performed for it. Okay. So what do we want to have happen when this occurs? Well, I want to pass this data to a degree controller. Okay. So first off, I don't even have a degree controller. So we should create a reference for a degree controller. So degree controller, controller. And then in our constructor for the user interface, we should go ahead and initialize this equals a new degree controller. All right. And then now what we should do is now we have the controller. So when this save button occurs and we get this event, what should we do with it? Okay, well, let's just have the controller process the current data. So we want to have, let's get the strings out. So string, we'll just say temp, or I could say string name is equal to. Now, how do I get the information out of the text field? Well, remember our text field is a name field. So we'll say name field dot, and there is a get text option, and that'll get the text out of the field. So what this will do is whatever text is typed in here right now, so when I type in, Bob Jones, and I hit save, the idea is that that field has data in it, and now it will grab the text, which in that case would have said Bob Jones. Okay. So then I also want to get the information out of the drop-down box, and if you forget the name, you can always look down here, find it. This is a degree chooser. Again, if you don't remember that either, you can click here, look at the properties, and this will tell you a lot about it, like this is a degree chooser. So now what I can do is I can go back to source, go back up to where I wanted to get this. So this is the degree that they are getting awarded. So this is a degree chooser dot. Now this one's a little weird, okay? Because drop-down boxes actually aren't always storing strings, okay? So what you want to do is, in this case, there is an option called selected item, okay? It returns an object. That's because drop-down boxes could actually be storing a reference to an object and be using its toString method to determine what it should be displaying. So in this case, it is a string that we have stored in there. It's just strings we set before. So we're going to use this, which is get selected item. And we need to make this a string. We need to cast this as a string. We know it's a string, so we should go ahead and cast it to the string. So this will take whatever the selected item is, which we know to be a string, and we're going to cast it to a string. And now it's time to tell the controller to do stuff with this, okay? Because we have the name, we have the degree, someone clicked the save button, it's time for the controller to do something with it. So we're going to tell the degree controller, which we called up here, we forgot, it's called controller, dot process name and degree. Okay. Again, the view doesn't know what to do with it. It just knows the controller can, we've created a method called process, and it just says do whatever you're supposed to do with this name and degree. Okay. For us right now, unfortunately, there would not be much that we'd see. So what we're going to do to sort of see that we're actually doing something is let's go into the controller and do a system out print line, just a simple debugging style thing, and just print out the array list. Okay. So this will just print out the two strings that we've put on for our degree info objects. Okay. So every time they hit save, this will process, it'll add it, and we're going to see a printout of all this. Okay. All right. So everything looks good. Let's go ahead and run it. And sorry. Okay, sorry. So right click, run file. It shows up here. And let's go ahead and type in Bob Jones. And Bob Jones got a BS and save. And we can see it worked. The array list printed out is Bob Jones. So we can do Terry Smith, who got an EDD. And now we have Bob Jones and Terry Smith. So we can see now that this action performed, this save button fires out action. And now that there's something listening for it, which is this saved action performed option, it's actually going to now say, okay, time to actually get this data. And then the controller processes it and stores it in the model. And the model then has that data permanently or however long that model is supposed to have it for. Now, obviously, sometimes you might say, well, what if I actually want to get this data back out here? Like I actually want to print out something like saved or something like that. Well, that's really actually a really cool way to do with it. So what you can do is, in the design function is, let's go ahead and add another J label. So we're going to add a J label. And let's put it really close to the save button because it's kind of where users expect to see things like that. And let's edit the text. And actually, before we edit the text, let's actually change its name to a saved label. And then let's edit the text to be blank. Okay. So now it's blank. Okay. So you may say, why would I do that? So let's go ahead and go to our source. And whenever this process occurs, why don't we set that label? So we called it our saved label. Oops, I apologize. Actually typed that name in differently than I meant. Saved label. Saved label. Saved label. Dot set text to Saved. So now there's a label there that now we're going to set that text. All right, let's take a look at it. Okay, see, label's not there. Bob Jones. Saved. So it's a nice way to actually show the user that something occurred as opposed to saying, oh man, did or did not something occur? So So this is a good way of using, action events to actually then handle them and do things with them. So you can have action events on almost everything. So, don't, please explore like this button has an action performed. Text fields have action performs if you hit enter on them. So there are lots of other things that have action performs, and you will want to make sure that you explore them because depending on what kind of interface you're designing, you may not have a button. You may just want them to hit enter instead. So explore these things as you go along to make sure you understand and try out some of your own action perform methods and try to obey by the model view controller approach because this is a very clear way to actually make sure that you separate your ideas from one from another. Thank you very much, folks. I'll see you guys next time. Have a great time.